today we're exploring this theme of closure and letting go. And so looking forward to joining with as many of you as are here today and exploring what letting go looks like in your life at this time. And we're just gonna see if we can get Rosy Aronson up here. And so, if you joined us previously for our last live stream here on Instagram, our last live stream, we were playing with a few creatures from the Laughers category. And we're continuing with the Laughers category today. The Laughers are one of the categories within the Dream Arc, a group of animals that remind us of the power of laughter. So, hopefully, we'll have a little bit of laughter. Last time when we were working with the Laughers, there she is. Last time we were working with the Laughers, we were working with three creatures, the sea urchin, the meerkat, and the kookaburra. Well, today we're going to be working with something a little bit different, but the laughter, the power of laughter will still be part of it. So, Rosy, there we go. The Laughers had a bit of fun with us as they were getting you reconnected to this call today. So, hello.
Hello. Hello. Hi, everybody. So you said that we're going to be continuing with the Laughers theme. And we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into a more paradoxical piece of it, which is the intersection between laughter and letting go, which is not always so obviously funny. So for those of you who are just kind of finding us for the first time and you're not familiar with the Dream Arc is a particularly creative and intuitive and feminine stream of the Gene Keys, where we explore the most profound archetypes of life through things like symbols and dreams and animals and synchronicity. And according to the Dream Arc Codex, which is written by Richard Rudd, there are 12 groupings of animals that are all connected to overarching archetypal themes like the warriors and the unifiers and the healers and the messengers. And like Matthew said last month, we drew a trio of animals from the Laughers Oracle. And of course, if your curiosity is piqued, just check that Insta Live out. And this time we're going to be exploring the Laughers again, but from a very different perspective, as our title for this conversation suggests, which is Color Your Closure, Laughing as You Let Go. So Matthew, you and I, we're just going to do our usual thing. We're going to go back and forth. We'll probably start with the more challenging aspects of letting go. And then we're going to make our way into the sunnier side. But before we get started, we're wondering if anybody here, whether you're listening now or in the future, is experiencing some kind of an ending in your life. You know, some aspect of your life that's in need of closure or is asking you to let go. You know, personally, I'm going through quite a big letting go process, and I have been over the past few years, if those of you have been following my journey. So this theme is especially relevant to me right now, and I saw Matthew raise his hand as well. So please just let us know in the chat if you can relate to the theme, and remember, there are many faces of letting go. So Matthew, I don't know, do you want to share anything? Are you seeing, we're seeing some yeses. Anything else you're seeing in the thread before I keep going?
Yes. The yeses. We're giving lots of the yeses. Yes. Okay. Letting go and closure. Yeah. Definitely. I'm seeing this in a lot of people that I work with in one-on-one sessions. I'm actually facilitating an event this weekend where we're going to be working with this theme, and the people who are showing up, they're all letting go of something. Sometimes it's big. Sometimes I think it's also important to recognize the little bits of letting go we do each and every day. You know, life is continuously this death and rebirth process. So yeah, let's see what the creatures bring us today.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, letting go is like one of life's greatest initiations, right? And like you say, fortunately or unfortunately, unlike some initiations or rites of passage that just happen one time in a lifetime, you know, opportunities to let go happen all the time, over and over again, you know, many times in one day. And then you can have one every other year, something like that, right? So like from the smallest little micro letting goes to the enormous letting goes. The ending of a 30-year marriage, right? That's what I've experienced. That's a huge letting go.
That's a pretty big one.
So the truth is that, if we're human, we're constantly being asked or invited or nudged or shoved into the art of release, right? And we can be invited to let go of dreams that weren't meant to come true, of relationships that have changed form or fallen apart or just come to an end. We can be asked to let go of jobs or careers or vocations that once gave us a really deep sense of purpose or identity, but just don't feel aligned anymore or are just not possible anymore. And sometimes we need to let go of places that we've called home, places where we've experienced a deep sense of belonging. And those can be actual, like physical places and homes, like locations in the world, or like inner homes that we've outgrown. And sometimes life asks us to release creative projects that we've poured ourselves into, sometimes for a really long time, that for one reason or another are just not meant to or able to be carried forward into the future. And the same goes for roles that we've played and titles that we've worn and ways that we've been seen, versions of ourselves that we've lived out. And most things in life have an expiration date, or we could look at life through the lens of seasons and cycles, right? We can have seasons of health or cycles of vitality. Our youth, assuming that we're blessed enough to become adults, inevitably comes to an end. The kind of mental clarity that once came easily to us as a menopausal woman can tell you, that can come to an end. And sometimes it's a belief system that we have to let go of, or a familiar worldview or a way of approaching life, a way of approaching relationships that's just not working within the new reality that we find ourselves. And sometimes it's a person or a friend or a family member or a close colleague or a whole community that we need to let go of. And it can be through death or through distance or change or just, the passage of time. And sometimes endings are natural and beautiful, like when children grow up and they're ready to leave the home, or when we have students or clients or people that we've worked with who go through a deep healing process and they individuate and they move forward, move on with their lives. But unfortunately, many of the moments in life when something comes to an end don't necessarily come with the feeling of closure, right? They don't always come with beautiful rituals and celebratory rites of passages, and especially in our modern secular civilizations, right? Many of us live without the kinds of rites and rituals that had been used for millennia to assist humans through life transitions in a way that had meaning and the support of a whole community. And for many of us, a lot of the time, our endings come as a surprise or like a shock, or they come slowly, like over time, without our really noticing, until suddenly we realize that like something that once felt so solid and so central to our lives is just like disappearing or on its way out. And while, of course, some of our endings are conscious and chosen and meaningful, even if they're not comfortable, many aren't, right? There are times we don't let go, but we get let go of, right? Like by people and by roles and life paths and systems and by workplaces and by institutions that we've relied on. And that kind of ending, when it's not our choice or a conscious choice, even if at a deep level we ultimately discover that it's meant to be, can be really devastating, like really devastating. Like I really know just how scary and unsettling and disorienting it can feel to be let go of, right? There's this fear of not knowing what's going to come next, right? And whether we're going to be okay. For some of us, there can be shame. Like I certainly know that tendency to get caught in this mental loop, like constantly questioning myself, like, is this my fault? Didn't I try hard enough, right? Am I not good enough? Or how the heck did I not see this coming, right? Was I just totally oblivious or blind or in denial or desperately codependent in my case? And then, of course, there's the grief, right? There's the grief we can feel when something that we've been caring about so deeply comes to an end. And grief, of course, like it includes all those uncomfortable stages and the anger and the bargaining and the feelings of betrayal and being abandoned or being discarded, thrown away, like we just don't matter. We don't have value. So when relationships and whole chapters of our lives come to an end, we can also think, wait, I'm not ready, right? I don't even want this ending, right? And we can end up fighting the change, like with all of our might, which can lead us to feeling incredibly exhausted from holding on, right? And trying to make things work for so long, just ignoring our body's intuition and all of the signs that have been pointing in an inevitable direction. I wanted to say, like, recently, this man called Chris Jepson, who's my amazing Universal Love Curriculum colleague, who's also been coaching me and helping me kind of find my way through a time of transition in my work life. He shared a quote with me that maybe some of you have heard before, but it really made me laugh. And the quote is, "When one door closes, another one opens, but the hallway is a bitch." And that was like one of those like precious and unexpected moments when a little bit of color and irony and laughter came into a closure process for me. And that's the beauty and the deep empathy that can be embedded in humor when it's really well timed and sensitively timed, because that's really important too. Sometimes we don't really see the humor in a situation when we're letting go, because it's really true. A lot of us don't talk so much about that hallway, right? Like that space between the door that we're kind of leaving behind and that new door that we're hoping is awaiting us, right? But that's the thing, there's so much uncertainty in that hallway, right? Usually we have no clue about what's coming or what's going to come, or even if it's going to come, like whether another door even exists. So that path of closure can feel very, very lonely and confusing, potentially endless. And it's a process, right? It's not a moment, it's a process. And it can be a sacred and profoundly transformative process if we let it be. But there isn't like this one size fits all recipe for how to do endings well. Often we kind of have to feel our way forward, and sometimes we cry. That's what I do. Sometimes we obsess over why. Sometimes we lose faith. Sometimes we distract ourselves. Sometimes we try to fight it. We fight what's happening, or we try to force the new next step, right? Or that next relationship or job into existence with like this sheer willpower in us. Or we try to go back in time and recreate what cannot be recreated. And of all those things, all those things are completely human. And if we're wise, we're going to remember to tend to our nervous system, and remember to breathe and to spend time in nature. We're with people that we trust, people we know aren't going to go anywhere, at least right now. And it's important to remember also that it can take time for our bodies and our hearts to catch up with the truth of our changing situation, right? It can really take time before we feel the difference between resignation and surrender, and for the loss and the grief to turn into trust and maybe even excitement about what's coming next, even if we have no clue what that is. Now, a couple of months ago, I watched a Spanish TV show called The Time It Takes. And each of these shows lasted 11 minutes. And the first show was called 10 Minutes in the Past and 1 Minute in the Present. And then the next show was 9 minutes in the past, 2 minutes in the present, right? And then it went on and on into the last show, which was 1 minute in the past, 10 minutes in the present. And basically the show is about a woman's journey of healing from a breakup, right? And you can see what it actually takes. And I thought that concept was so brilliant and very relatable, and probably a really good example of how somebody, whoever wrote that screenplay for the show, who probably experienced a heartbreak in their own lives, as most of us have, took that deeply, deeply personal experience and turned it into a creative project that then speaks to the hearts of so many people like me who've had that same kind of experience. And think of like all the amazing music that's been created out of heartbreaks. That's added so much color and texture and inspiration to the collective experience of closure. Which also reminds me of one of my all-time favorite podcast episodes from This American Life called Dr. Phil. And I'm hoping maybe we can share the link in the podcast one day. And it was essentially made by a writer named Starlee Keen, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who finds like a whole lot of comfort in breakup songs, that then she finds so much comfort in them that she decides to write one herself after a really, really painful breakup with a boyfriend, even though she has no musical ability at all. And she ends up getting help from Phil Collins, of all people. And it is just so good. Totally recommended. And I don't know why I wanted to. I'm sharing like all these TV shows and podcast episodes, but I think it's because closures and endings are such incredibly universal experiences, and do bring so much creativity out. But anyway, I've talked plenty, and I'd love to hear from you, Matthew, and anybody listening or watching. So here are just like a couple of questions, but you could share anything you want to share. Is there a place in your life where you are being asked to let go, or where you were asked to let go? And either how are you doing with that, or how did you manage it? Like any insights emerging from those processes that you want to share with us. And then also, can you think back on a time when you experienced an ending that you really didn't want, but you ended up feeling grateful for it? And I'm curious what happened and what it took, right? Whether it was the passage of time or an inner shift of attitude or a grieving process, or maybe a resulting experience of personal growth, or a new door that ended up opening for you, for that blessing of the ending to become clear to you. So that's my question for you.
Awesome question. And the question here, what was the name of the Spanish show? You said the names of the
I
individual
think it
episodes.
was
What was
called The Time That It Takes.
the time that it takes?
Something
Awesome.
like that. The time it takes, or the time that it takes to let
Yes.
go.
And I think that's really appropriate for that, because there's a lot of times where, it's like you're going through a process and it can make other people uncomfortable. And so they just say, oh, just let it go, let it go. And it's like giving yourself the permission for it to be the time it needs to be. And for the rest of us watching somebody go through that process, can we let them have that process without needing to rush them on, move them on, make them run? I think that's so important in this letting go process, because yeah, anything that we do work with the Dream Arc, it's about calling for a deep patience. And I've been speaking through people who've been going through this period of change, and they feel like they're in a cocoon, and it's like they're excited about the potential rebirth that's arising. And so this is like, hurry it up, hurry it up. And if we can recognize that each and every moment, like any feeling that we feel in the process, has so much value for us, and that we can then share that with others. And I would say, in my role in the Dream Arc, it's some of you who've been around the Dream Arc for a while know that they've given me different titles. My current one is the Green Knight. Prior to that, I was the Squire, and there's different qualities to each of those roles and names. And I've definitely learned over the years that an identity is not something that I stay attached to. It's something I enjoy and play with, right? It's like there can be this kind of feigned detachment in the world of spirituality where it's actually we don't engage with life. And the kind of detachment that we're going to be talking about, or the kind of letting go, it's a full engagement in life. It's a full surrender to our story. And part of my story right now has been about the Green Knight. And in the Green Knight mythology, the archetype, he gets beheaded. And it's such a good example of a motif for mythology that is about the transformation process, that is about the process of letting go. So much so that when I was going through a recent journey with a group of people, and we were all journeying with the Green Knight, and then the Green Knight got his head cut off. It was like it played out in my life so perfectly, in very real time, very near time. And so one of the ways that I would say was most profound in my life, this was many years ago, and I had a book contract, and I was really excited about it. I had Louise Hay was writing the foreword to this book, and it was like there was a lot of hype and expectation around it. I was playing this role. It's funny you talk about gratitude. I was playing this role. I was known as a gratitude because me and my buddy who'd co-written this book, we were out there professing the value of gratitude, the power of gratitude, living that gratitude. And in that experience, I loved being a gratitude. I loved the attention I was receiving. I loved what I got, the people I got to meet. I mean, Louise Hay was one. I got to do my gratitude dance with the Jacksons, one of the Jackson brothers. It's like, and some of these other folks that we got to meet along the way, and it was just like it felt so cool. And then that book contract came to an end because these things can happen. And it was painful. And I was very attached to that role. I was very attached to being seen as the gratitude because underneath it all, I recognized this pain of Matthew feeling invisible, just as Matthew, that it wasn't enough to just be Matthew. And so there was this gradual process of letting go. And at times I did kind of dissociate. And at times I did almost kind of pretend that I was feeling better about things and that I hadn't really allowed myself to bring that compassionate closure and that letting go, this letting go of this role. And it's still a part of me. It's still a part of who I am. Maybe I'm not known as the gratitude anymore, but everything I learned as a gratitude still gets to be a part of my lived experience. But my worth was placed upon that title, upon that name. What if my worth wasn't to do with that at all? And that actually it was because of who I am as an individual, not any role that I'm taking on. So for me, one of these profound journeys in life has been recognized in the way that I take on a certain role. A lot of people are going through changes in career. There are people who've been lifers in one particular 30 years in one particular career, and then something is suddenly shifted. They've been thrown into this change that they weren't expecting. We're seeing the rise of AI. Everyone's feeling that in some way, and it's bringing up different feelings for people across different kind of work fronts. But people are being asked to let go of something, and they don't know who they are necessarily without that. And that's not wrong. To go through that and acknowledge that feeling is a really important part of it, because that's what life conditioned us. That's how many of us were conditioned. And as we grew up, as we, grew into adults, and as we went into careers. And so to be able to let go is a process. There is this cocoon phase that we all go through. The caterpillar, before it becomes the butterfly, goes through the cocoon phase, and it doesn't rush it. And it's like the dragonfly too, the nymph that becomes the dragonfly. We don't know what we're becoming. And so part of the clinging can also come from the uncertainty of not knowing what we're becoming. And so can we let ourselves experience all of this? Because, in time, that was part of my greatest lessons as a gratitude, was that could I even find gratitude in the getting cut off? Could I find gratitude in the decapitation that it felt like? Could I find gratitude in who I am as Matthew beyond any role or title or definition? And so that was such a gift. But to feel that genuine gratitude took me not bypassing the emotions of the pain and the sense of loss of pride or whatever I'd attached into that. And it was just really honoring that humanness in that. And so I feel like there's many people, whether it's in relationships. So you mentioned another one as well earlier, is like a lot of people, their kids are growing older and they're leaving home. They're leaving home, and suddenly it's like the mother and father, it's like, we've been a parent for 18 years, and suddenly we're distant parents. And it's like, what does that look like? How does that? And so there's these expected letting goes, and then there's these unexpected letting goes. And I feel like, if we're ripped from life suddenly, there may not always be this time for compassionate closure. But if we can remember a little compassionate closure in each moment, then that can bring a sense of this celebration that we're going to be speaking to in a few minutes here. So that's kind of something that's alive for me in this moment, around this moving on and letting go, based upon an old painful experience that I've now found a place of deep gratitude in my life for. But it has to be a felt gratitude. It couldn't be a faked gratitude. So I couldn't rush into being a gratitude. I had to go through a process.
The process of truly becoming a gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah, Matthew, it's so, I could respond to so much that you said, but the cutting off of the head of the Green Knight, it feels so reflective of what is required of us, right? We need to let go. Like when we're really letting go, we got to remove the head and drop into the body and have a full embodied, heartful experience that takes the time that it takes. And so I was really struck by that visual, that metaphor of the losing of the head.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever
Mm-hmm.
we let go of something, there needs to be an aspect of that process where we put our thoughts and our beliefs and our mental attachments aside and drop in and just let ourselves feel. So I don't know
Yeah.
if there's anything that anybody's sharing that we want to read up before I share some more.
I
Anything?
think there's just yeah, just some people recognizing themselves going through
Mm,
changes, like we are talking
mm,
about. One person I think mentioning this too is like the loss of community, missing of community. So I think that that's something important in this
mhm,
grieving and this letting go process too. Somebody else talking about the gratitude dance. Yeah, thank you. And then also yeah, the letting go of this is Aranza. I know. Hi, Aranza. Learning to let go of unintegrity and compromises. So there is these other parts of ourselves that we can actually feel like, yeah, it's time to let go of this part of me, right? So we can tend to find, although we can even cling to those, can't we? It's like because it's
mhm,
familiar, it's like we can cling to that. And so stepping into the unknown, stepping into the light,
mhm,
really, it calls for a
mhm.
letting go with trust.
Yeah,
And so thank you for sharing that, Duranza. So I think those are the ones I would share for the
wonderful.
moment.
Yeah, and that brings up, we sometimes lose our identity and our roles, but really, or maybe our integrity, or we make compromises, but often it is because of a fear, and especially now, livelihood. And those are often those things that get us to compromise our integrity or compromise on our dreams or those true callings that are being born through that cocoon experience. So, yeah, thank you everybody for your
Hmm.
responses. Um, so I'm thinking, Matthew, maybe we can move on to the lighter side of letting go. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but sometimes, like, just when we think we can't get any more depressed or grieve anymore, something like totally unexpected happens. It maybe like an old memory comes up, or just a little sparkle of light in the darkness, or something that just makes us laugh, or that just shifts our state or our perspective in ways that we didn't think possible. That's what the parrot from the dream arc is all about, right? So we're going to be talking about the parrot today, who came up in our little oracular pre-conversation draw, and the archetype that it expresses. And the parrot often shows up at like really strange and really difficult times, especially when we've lost something or someone that we've loved and been really devoted to. And it comes when like a dream has fallen apart or a partnership has ended. And it comes as a shapeshifter, right? Like a medicine carrier, like this colorful rainbow, this sacred clown. And it does something pretty radical, which is celebrate. Like it celebrates, but not instead of grief, not in the place of grief. It celebrates together with the grief. So I want to read just a little bit from the Dream Arc Codex about the parrot, written by Richard. But first, know that the parrot is referred to as the vision of jubilant celebration. So for you Gene Keys fans out there, it's connected to the 42nd Gene Key with the shadow of expectation, the gift of detachment, which Matthew's already been talking about, or non-attachment, and the city of celebration, like that highest expression of this archetype. And if you're a dream art lover, its animal partners are the llama and the clam. And I'm going to just read a little bit from the codex, and here it goes. All right, I have my notes right here. I am the parrot. I bring laughter into your life. I bring joy. My timing sometimes seems off, but I assure you it is not. It's during the most difficult times, the most challenging moments that we must remember to celebrate. Act with dignity and honor, and instead of giving in to the descending energy of suffering, turn it around inside yourself. The greatest human moments come at times of intensity. Use the intensity to propel you into the pivot. Do not ask, how will I achieve this? Step beyond how and into the transformation itself. Allow yourself to be lifted. Allow yourself to see with an entirely new vision. Death should be celebrated. Death is not black. Death is a rainbow. Death is the return to remembering. Then you may follow it out into the world. Then you can abandon yourself to its grace. If I've come to you now, and it has come to all of us, then your sufferings are finally coming to an end. I am an ender. I come to bring closure and to spark deep gratitude in your soul for the journey or the life that's been. Open your heart then and sing out your joy and your love. For when the old passes away, it should pass away to the sound of laughter and jubilation. So I don't know about you, Matthew, but when I read that, like I immediately thought, like I started free associating and I thought of one of my all-time favorite movies, Harold and Maude. Have you seen it? Do you know that movie?
I know of it. I've never watched
Oh
it.
my God. Oh my God. Okay, well, first of all of the music for the movie is by Cat Stevens. I don't know if you like him, but he's another one of my
Yes, for
favorites.
sure.
Oh my God. Okay. So Harold and Maude, you have to watch it with Nicole. Anyway, Harold and Maude is like this highly unusual romantic love story between this deeply depressed and very young man who's completely obsessed with death and suicide, and a very old Holocaust survivor who's obsessed with life. And they meet at this funeral, and she's really easy to spot because one of her favorite things to do is celebrate life by going to funerals of strangers. And she usually brings like a snack with her and wears very bright colors. And believe me, if you have not seen it, I so recommend it. And I promise not to give any more away right now. But for me, Maud, her character is the ultimate parrot. You know, she's not here to make fun of us or this sweet, depressed young man or to distract us, right? Or to gloss over the pain. She's here like to seduce even the most hopeless of us into a state of pure joy and gratitude. And like all of the laughers in a way, the parrot, right, like Maud, is here to remind us that, hey, we're still here. We're still breathing. We're still in bodies. We're still allowed to feel good, no matter what the hell is going on, right? Even in death, we can still find something to celebrate. We can still introduce or be visited by a little color. And I have to say, like, now that we're kind of on the subject of death and funerals, like some of the saddest moments of my life have carried the funniest moments of my life. Like times when my family was
Hmm.
so utterly cracked open with pain and grief that laughter just could not help but slip in through the cracks. And I'm thinking of this time back in 2001, actually, when my beloved grandfather, Sam, was dying. And my mom and my sister and I were all sitting with him in the hospital while he was taking his last breaths. And my mom, who had essentially devoted her entire life to this man, like I can't think of a mother or a father daughter relationship more close than the one that they had with each other. And she hadn't slept in weeks. Suddenly she said through the tears, I need a Butterfinger. Which for those of you who don't know is like this very particular kind of candy bar, probably invented in the 1950s. And I cannot tell you how that moment hit us. Like there was something about it that had us all in tears. We were crying, we were laughing. And I just wonder if any of you have a story like that, right? The parrot, like it reminds us not to take things so personally too, right? Like I have another good example of that, right? So in relation to this particular ending that I'm processing at the moment in my own life, like just a week or two ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this dream of a movie I hadn't seen in years. I don't know why I'm like talking about TV shows and movies so much, but I feel like I need to because I think the parrots speak to us through storytelling, right? And
Mm.
it was called the movie was called He's Just Not That Into You. And I don't know if you've seen
Mhm.
that one, but essentially it tells the stories of several different women who are all like completely devoted to men who just literally just aren't that into them. And it takes these women forever to finally get the hint. And anyway, so I wake up in the middle of the night with the title of that dream and I start laughing out loud. It was like this huge epiphany. I'm like, oh, I guess these people just aren't that into me. And of course, at a deep level, I know that I'm loved and that no one intends to cause me
Mhm.
harm and that whatever is happening is ultimately in service of my own soul's path. And, even if it's painful, but somehow like that little phrase, that perspective was just what I needed. Like I could suddenly see myself as this, like this like from a movie, like this desperate girlfriend who's been waiting for and blindly holding on to someone who just hasn't been available. and to a relationship that hasn't really been feeling that mutual or aligned for a while. And it just made, I don't know, it made it feel so much less personal. Like there's no blame, there's no shame, nobody's doing anything horrible. It's just the facts. Not that they don't care about me, they don't want to cause me harm. They just aren't that into me, at least not right now. So instead of working so hard to like move in a direction towards this vision, right, that's maybe not shared right now or held with the same level of intensity or devotion, I can let go, right? I can wish everybody well, take time to
Mm.
grieve, like Matthew's talking about, and then just slowly start turning my attention towards relationships where there's just obvious greater alignment, or towards that which brings me joy right now, or towards like spaces where my wings can open and fly in a less inhibited way. And that's what the parrot invites us to explore. Like, what brings you joy right now? Where can you outstretch your wings, even when you're in the thick of it? And I've also been working with the antelope, who's my like personal laugher, which Matthew invited me to get, which is also feeling very connected. Like the antelope is the bearer only of good tidings, right? And it reminds us that all suffering ultimately leads to bliss and release, and all pain leads to freedom, and all evil leads to benevolence and compassion and forgiveness. And the antelope has come to set me, and probably you too, since you're all here listening, off in a new direction, right? With a new spirit and with the soul of this playful, innocent child. So, Matthew, I would love to hear anything you feel inspired to share, anything about the parrot, about what brings you joy, about your own laughter, your own laugher.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I know you've been working with the laugher too. So, anything that comes to you.
Okay, there's so much here. All right, let's
Yeah.
start. Just so my current laugher is the duck. I'm working with the duck. I made a special visit to a duck pond the other day. I was like, I can't miss the ducks here. And so um, I, I, I was out there with the ducks for a bit. But what was interesting is when my walk today, I was walking through the forest and so often hear chickens in the background. But I was walking through the forest. I suddenly hear this quack, quack. I'm like, there's a duck. There's a duck in the forest. This is right before this call today.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay, I welcome it in. And it's actually related to the antelope, the same gene
yeah.
key, the 58th gene key. And it is about this joy. And you were talking about this death and dying and the joy that can be found within the deepest despair, the deepest sadness, right? And both my granddads feel like they're with me here today. My grandfather on my one side, my granddad on the other. Granddad had a parrot. He had a pet parrot, and it was called Tati. I always used to think that was Tati as Tatty, but then questioning my dad about it recently, we started to wonder. Jacques Tati was his favorite movie person, and so I was like, I wonder if it's Tati as in Tati. And then I was kind of inclined to look up the meaning of the name Tati. And as I looked, it turns out when I looked it up, it was telling me that it meant fairy queen. And I was like, well, if that doesn't bring me right back into all the mythology that I'm exploring and loving right now, I'm like, thank you, parrot, thank you, grandfather, for that one. But when you were talking about the death as well, like my grandfather on my mom's side was the first to pass in the family, and that was like the first death that I really got to be in touch with. And as I've shared elsewhere, the night before I was visited by an owl. It literally flew over my shoulder the day before he passed. But beyond that, there is this letting go process, and part of it, we were all there gathered at the funeral, and my grandmother was recounting how he was really holding on in the last few days. My grandfather, he was stubborn. He was stubborn. He could hold on and not let go of things that needed to be let go a long time ago. And my aunt, who's a nurse, was sitting with him. He's like, okay, he's breathing like he's going to pass any minute. Well, that went on for 2 days. It's like, any minute now. And so my grandmother was sitting with him and just stroking his hands, right? And she's like, Yannick, my grandfather's name, Yannick, you go to the light, go to the light.
Wow.
And he wasn't going. And then she turned to my aunt and she said, in 66 years of marriage, he's never done anything that I've told him. She said, Yannick, stay, stay. And he slipped away. And I'm like, if that's not the perfect, like, humorous moment at like, so there was the tears, there was the laughter, there was all of that in that moment. And the parrot, I mean, some of you might be familiar with the Monty Python sketch of the dead parrot. And it's just hilarious. He brings this parrot into a vet store and he's just bought it half an hour before. He says, "This parrot is dead." It is quite obvious. No, he's not. He's resting, sir. And it's this long conversation trying to convince the store clerk that the parrot he bought is actually dead. And, I can't help but think that Richard was sitting here writing the parrot transmission and thinking of that particular clip because so much of it is woven into this and this celebration. I mean, so often, we wait until a change has taken place. I'm speaking for myself here. I should say I can catch myself waiting is like, yes, I'll feel good when that change has happened. But remembering to feel good in this, to celebrate in this moment, to celebrate the small victories. We might see and experience something that feels like a huge letting go and only recognize what feels like the failure in it, but then being able to reflect on, wow, look at all the amazing things that did happen. Look at who I became in this process, because regardless of what we're letting go of, we have become something new in the process. We are letting go of an old, and it is so much about our attitude towards it. And so the parrot just swings in to remind me of this. And I love hearing this as well, where it's used the intensity, reminding us that it comes at times when it's most intense and when we least feel like celebrating and we least feel like being grateful. It says, use the intensity to propel you into the pivot. We love that, the pivot. Do not ask, how will I achieve this? Step beyond how and into the transformation itself. And I feel like that's, as we're moving through this uncertainty, we're moving through it collectively at this time, as well as many of us individually. We are the microcosm within the macrocosm. And so there's this uncertainty about what will happen or necessarily how I'm going to get there. And what's always happening is old ways of doing things are falling apart. And we're recognizing that there are new ways showing up for us, new ways, yes, we're adapting to a world where AI is being picked up. And what does that mean? And how can we adapt to that? And so, the things that are being invented now that we don't even know, like we can despair about some of the great world challenges, but I've seen some of the great resolutions and revolutions that are coming. The younger generation that's designing things that hasn't even been conceivable to those of us who have lived in a more in a world where we've become familiar with certain things. Everything's changing so quickly. So there's this continual, asking for letting go, but to feel that transformation, we can sense that something is emerging. It would be, I think there's also this piece about prophecy. And I love when Richard talks about the 2027 prophecy. He's not somebody who says, this is what's going to happen. This is the way it's going to be in this timeline, right? He doesn't place it, although this 2027 is a catalytic time and moment. There's also this sense of it could be another 1,000 years. He states this quite clearly elsewhere. It could be 1,000 years before we see the true intimacy of the 59th gene key materializing in the physical world, for instance. And so there's this sense of letting go of the attachment to how something is, but also feeling this sense of anticipation of what is to come, but without the timeline. Even coming to that place of like, can I let go of this even needing to happen in this time, in this lifetime? And that was such a huge pivot point in my own life, where I felt like I had to get it all done in this lifetime. When I was younger, it was because I was, as a Catholic boy, I was told this is the only lifetime and it's here. You go to heaven or you go to hell. It's like, oh, I got to get it right then. I want to go to heaven. And so, but this deep patience that comes in this process of letting go and trusting, and that this parrot allows us to step beyond. So we see the transformation, that which we're stepping into, but without needing to know how we get there. Because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the how, whereas this is this invitation to be like, yeah, just as we attune to deep gratitude, this instead of waiting for the world to change in order for us to become grateful, we attune to that gratitude, that state of gratitude. And in doing so, we find more things that we can genuinely feel grateful for. And this doesn't have to be, as we've talked about this, it's not about a bypassing of any pain or any, it's holding it all and just that, yeah, if we can find those moments of celebration, even in the most painful of death processes, it can be, it can take us beyond the suffering. And I love that the parrot is an ender in this way, right? If it's shown up, then what suffering is coming to an end in your life at this time? So yeah, those are some of the things that come to my mind when I invoke the parrot, and I feel Tati and my grandfather on one side and my other grandfather on the other side. And it's interesting because they both had the cross of the sleeping phoenix in their gene keys profile, which for anybody curious is the 59, 55, 20, and 34. So in the pulse of the 20th gene key, it feels
Do you want to say just
relatable.
a little bit more about the sleeping phoenix, just in terms of what it symbolizes and maybe how it could be connected to letting go or rebirth? Anything
Yeah, I mean the
that
cross
comes
of
to you? Yeah.
the phoenix that rises out of the ashes,
Mm.
for one thing. So, many of us are going through this life and death process right now. A rebirth process is kind of, we're paving the way for this rebirth. And at the same time, we have to fully die to the old, right?
Mm.
And so in 2027, we're moving into this 400-year period, a global cycle where it's like the collective theme is there's going to be this theme of the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And this is related to those four gene keys that I mentioned. I know we're in dream arc land here, so we're not diving too much into that. But it's a time of real change. And we've seen these before over 400-year histories where these great changes come about. And so we are preparing for this change together. We're allowing for this dying of the old, which is why we're seeing many systems falling apart. Many of the ways that we've worked tribally and community-wise together are shifting and changing, and we're preparing for this new time where these new seeds are being planted, and that for many of us are aware that the 55th gene key, which moves from victimization to freedom, but kind of comes this like overarching guide for all of us over these next 400 years. And so this is a period of really recognizing where we still feel like we are the victim of a particular experience or situation or person in our life. And so that we open up to this rebirth of the phoenix rising out of the ashes. So over these next few years, we could find, and it could be longer beyond that. Who knows what, the nature has in store for us in that way. But can we give ourselves that deep patience? Can we allow ourselves to move through this time of transition? And if you're somebody who works with gene keys and dream arc, the animals can be a particularly powerful guide in this process, and they can show us certain things. And then if you're somebody who works with the gene keys, that's another way of working through your unique death process as we open up to the rebirth. So the rising phoenix, it's sleeping, but it's also rising.
Beautiful, beautiful, Matthew. And just to tag on to what you're saying, just in terms of what's helped me make peace with some of the deaths I've been dealing with in my life, both literal, because my father just passed away last year, but also some of the deaths of identity and role and relationships. It's helped me to think about it like something in me has to die in order for me to find my new role in this new world that's emerging. Like there was something about the old life I was living that wasn't going to allow me to call forth the resources that I'm going to need to bring to meet the change that's happening on the collective space. So you already said that, but I just want to add that for other
No, I
people,
like,
just another perspective, right? To a way, it's like actually
absolutely.
that's how we prepare
Yeah.
to be the
Yes.
ones we need to be to meet the change.
Yeah.
And there's some intelligence at work that is so beyond our intellectual knowledge. Like, I mean, for me, I'm like, oh, I could keep doing that and meet the change, but obviously not.
Yeah.
Obviously, something else is needed from me. I need to become another being, another version of Rosy in order to meet what's coming. Yeah.
I love that, and I think that's real good clarity. I'm actually doing a visioning session with a group of people later,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the questions we're stepping into this vision of what we see for ourselves in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and who we're becoming. Most importantly, because that's what we can have some say in about who
Mm-hmm.
we're becoming, and in that process, one of the questions we ask is like, what do I need to embody or become in order to bring this forward? And what do I need to let go of? What parts of who I am right now in this moment are not serving? So exactly what you said there. But it's part of this envisioning what we become, not attached to how it looks, because this is when we're talking about this work, it's like it's this inner state of being through all of this. So
Yeah.
I think that's
Very,
a great tie-in at the end here.
yeah, very beautiful, beautiful. Now, I know we're kind of coming to the end. I have a little fun experiential invitation to give to people, but I'm wondering, Matthew, do you want to just read up a few of the comments, just because I know those things disappear?
Yeah, somebody was just
Just,
relating to that they've got the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix,
oh,
and that's really resonating for them. Spirit Wolf Healing Art said, my dad was a geologist. He was bedridden for 2 years before he died.
mm.
He was seemingly at the moment of death at least 10 different times. The joke in the family became that he does everything in geologic time. Geologic time. There we go. Yeah, yeah. The speed of the rocks. I mean, yeah. That's awesome. And what else did we have? I think. Yeah, just going back a little further. Somebody was saying the Roadrunner just showed up for them today. Yeah, and this flying free. You know, we've got a bird here that we're talking about the rabbit, the parrot, the parrot, and this flying free as we're letting go.
And the
Yeah,
running into the thing we fear, like the runner, right? We go right into the
yeah.
heart of the intensity. Roadrunner doesn't run away
Hmm.
from intensity. So continue. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think those are some of the key ones that are popping out.
Wonderful.
Somebody's just realized that they have parrot related
Ah,
to their Gene Keys profile. Oh, and
wonderful.
Spirit Wolf. I wondered if that was Margaret. Margaret Miller was Spirit Wolf
Oh,
there.
Margaret.
So that was her story about her geologist
Oh
father.
my God, what a story. It would be fun just to write a whole book of hilarious death stories.
Yeah, there you go.
I know.
Hilarious death stories.
Oh my God. Okay, so do we have a minute for me to just give a little invitation?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
we're on geologic
oh yeah.
time here.
Oh my God, I just, do you remember, was it Life of Brian, where the guy who's standing on a podium and making predictions, but like the most mundane predictions? Do you remember that? But
It's
okay,
not,
anyway, I'll talk.
we're-
I'll think about it. He's like, I predict that someone is gonna drop their butter knife on the floor at 3:42 p.m. Like instead of like
right,
the big, what's the new human, or he just like a series of
right.
the most mundane predictions you could
Mundane,
possibly.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, oh my
yeah.
God.
That's
All right.
right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So here is a three-step practice for letting go, inspired by the parrot. And don't do it now. This is just something maybe you could take a few notes and do it when the time is right. And you might want to do it with a friend, someone you feel really safe with, or on your own, up to you. Okay, so the first simple step is just name the ending, right? So essentially, the invitation here is to just take a deep breath and think of one thing that you're ready or being asked to, whether you're ready or not, let go of. Something that's ending, shifting, something that's no longer fitting with you and who you are, or where you're heading. And all you need to do in step one is just say it out loud or whisper it to yourself, like, I am letting go of, and you fill in the blank. And that's it. That's number one. All you have to do is just about naming it and acknowledging what is in the process of being let go. I am letting go of. And so the second step involves making a little bit of noise, a la the parrot, just to give the release a sound. And any sound that matches how it feels for you to let this go, right? So it could be like soft, like a whisper, or it could be like a scream. It could be a sigh, a grunt, a growl, or a chuckle. It's totally up to you. It can be subtle, it can be ridiculous, it all goes. And remember that we're dealing with the parrot here. So you're going to feel a little silly and awkward doing this. That's totally okay. It's actually really good. So just do it anyway. And you might want to try a couple versions of the sound just to make sure you're honing in on the one that feels the most correct. And you cannot get it wrong, actually. All right, and that's it. That's step two. So I am letting go of, and then you find some kind of a sound like, ah, or like, oh, it could be anything, right? And then step three is where you get to laugh it out, right? So this is kind of a moment where maybe you shake your body, you might want to wiggle around, maybe wiggle your face around, and just invite in a little laughter. It might be real, it might be like just for pretend. It might not feel authentic in the beginning, right? You might start like, those like belly laugh yoga classes where you start with a ha ha ha, a deep belly chuckle, and you just kind of let it grow inside of you, and see if you can let it bubble up, let it be weird, let it move through you. And then, say something playful and kind to yourself, like goodbye, old story, or thanks for the great ride, or time for me to fly, something simple, something true, but something that feels resonant and parrot inspired. And that's it, right? That's it. So you name the thing you're letting go of, you give it a little bit of sound, and then you do a little belly laughing, and then you make some kind of an expression where you're expressing that you're letting it go. And just be present at the end of it, and just let whatever arises in the moments, in the days and the weeks that come, and see how you feel. This isn't going to solve the big problems of your life. It's not going to resolve all your feelings, but you might notice a very subtle shift in energy, or a little bit less stuckness after doing this. And we just ask you to trust that some colorful closure magic has occurred, whether you feel it instantly or not. And that's my invitation to you. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Matthew. Hope it's not too weird.
No, keep it simple. Keep it simple, and if it's not weird, it's not the Dream Arc laughers, is
Yeah.
it? Like this is, we've been saying right from the get, this is the laughers we're doing today. So I think that it could be laughter is the noise that you make. But yeah, I love that. I love that, and I'm thinking we're going to clip that section out as well, just of you
Oh,
sharing those particular questions. Not clip it out and leave it and let it go. No, that's not what I meant.
cut it
Like,
out.
yeah, we're just gonna let that go. Give you another unexpected letting go. No, what I mean is we're gonna clip it out and share it because it's so priceless, and some people can just work with the questions that way. So I think those are great questions, or it's a great process, and yeah. So thank you. Well, yeah, we can begin to wrap up now. We've been talking a little bit about geologic time today, and I've been sitting with this rock crystal this week, and I'm going to share it in a second here. But as I'm preparing for this event at this weekend where I'm working with a group of people and we're going through this life and death and letting go process, I've been paying attention to the dream arc creatures that show up. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went to visit the location where we're hosting it, this yurt in the forest. It's a beautiful spot. And there's this parrot. Sorry, no, it's not a parrot. And now I'm getting confused. There was an owl in the trees just hooting away. And I was like, oh, hi, so you're the guardian of the land, are you? Okay. And then that weekend, I received a parcel with an owl feather in it. I had a discussion with some of the other Dream Arc guides, and we were working and sharing owl stories. And then I had this owl encounter as myself and my wife were waiting for her to have an operation. And I also picked up this crystal. It's called Storalite, and it's associated with one of my gene keys. And I picked it up the same day or the same weekend that Nicole, my wife, was going in for her surgery. And just yesterday, I was sharing it with somebody, and she didn't know that about any of my owl experiences or anything like that. But I took a photo of the crystal, and she just said, "Wow, it kind of looks owly."
It totally
So
looks
now I can
totally.
see that little beak and the owly face, and it's kind of looking at us like this, and so
Even like the
it's
little.
yeah, even like
Mhm.
it's got the ears there.
Wow.
So let your imagination and intuition run wild in this journey. And if you're working, the other thing I might add is if you're going to be um, contemplating this letting go process would be what creature might want to come out and help you. You could call upon the the codex of the dream arc for that, or it could just be a simple encounter as you're out and about your business, because the owl has been felt very present. And it might not be for everyone that I'm working with at this event, but it's been for me part of my process. And so, you know, a lot of the creatures in the dream arc have messages about death, dying, rebirth. And I feel like what this whole body of work has been supporting me and others around is this, you know, making peace with the death and dying process, making celebration of it like it is in so many other cultures, the Eastern ways, that they're not morbid. They spend a lot of time contemplating death so they can live life. And so what creatures show up for you as you're contemplating these changes? So a reminder to all of you that we have been sort of dipped into the laughers category of the dream arc right now. And if you go to our bio, you'll see links to our latest Gazelle, which is our newsletter. And we have in there a laughers oracle. So you could even call on one of the creatures of the dream arc to come and give you a little message of support in your process of letting go, or of embodying more joy in life, more joy and more laughter. And so wanted to share that that's available, as you can see that link. If you're new to us, please do follow and subscribe. We love to engage with people here on Instagram. And there is just a couple of questions that are actually relevant to what we're sharing here. Somebody here, Lula, I think it says, how do you find your animals related to the gene key, please? Thank you. If you go to thedreamarc.com, you can begin to see those connections. You'll see there is somewhere on there, I believe it's on there, where you can see a PDF with the link of all the gene keys with all the creatures. If not, reach out to support@genekeys.com and we can make sure that you get that, because that is accessible to anybody, whether you own the course or not. If you own the course, you will actually get a full, like the transmission that we received from the parrot, you get that for all of the 192 creatures. So if you're feeling that call to go deeper in, and also if you liked Rosy's invitation there, the 3-part invitation there, the Dream Arc course is full of those to kind of bring out our creative spirit and help us tap more deeply into our intuition and work with the wisdom of the creatures that are showing up. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an answer there, Lula, and others who might have questions about that. And also a couple of people are just sharing, moth just came to somebody directly, uncomfortable with moth, so we'll contemplate that. This is inspiring. Awesome. Thank you. And then somebody else just picked a raven while listening, watched one fly over me yesterday. See, I love how retroactive the dream arc can be in that way. It's like, oh, wait a minute, I saw that yesterday. Okay, I must pay attention. I won't take that flying raven for granted. Awesome. So I think those are all the announcements. If you're somebody who is in the Dream Arc course, May the 28th, we have a community call where you can gather and share your experiences in the Dream Arc. If you haven't joined in one of those yet, it's a fantastic way to feel the magic and the energy and the creativity of the Dream Arc, and hearing the weavings and the synchronicities that people experience is quite amazing. So we're looking forward to that next week. Other than that, I think that's all we needed to share here today. Thank you, everybody. Oh, you got something else there, Rosie?
I just wanted to say one thing. For those of you who might want to get like a little taste of what's in the Dream Arc, Matthew and I have been doing public transmissions that are connected to our Dream Pod calls on YouTube. And we just released one yesterday, I think, right? And
yes,
in these particular, and we're actually trying to weave the Dream Arc together with other aspects of the Gene Keys. So definitely check out the Dream Arc YouTube channel. You'll get some really good content there and get a sense of the kind of things people are exploring in our community calls. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, Thank you.
Yeah, you can subscribe. I'm not sure if there's a link in the bio and here on Instagram. You might have to go to YouTube and just search Gene Keys Dream Arc. It will show up as its own. It's a separate channel to the Gene Keys, just like this is a separate Instagram page to the Gene Keys. Yeah. So thank you for that. And yeah, as a girl with kaleidoscope eye says, the crane, that's the bird of the 20th Gene Key. And I think that's a great way to finish as an invitation. It brings in this vision of mythical patience going on a journey. If we're working with the crane, we're going on a journey. What is being asked to, what are we being called to bring our presence into at this moment? And so, yeah, thank you all. Thank you, Rosy. As always, been a ton of fun. We'll do this
Thank you.
again next month. And thank you to all of you who have joined us for the live and watching the replay. And please share stories and experiences. If you go out, if it, 2 days from now, you come across some animal synchronicity or something that's helped you with this process, please come back to this and just write your comments because we love hearing of them.
Yes,
so thank you.
do. And these comments disappear, so we want to see them.
Yes,
So yeah,
exactly. These all disappear.
Yeah.
So you let go of your comments, folks, because they're all gone after we shut this down.
That's what I have to let go. I get attached to the comments.
Yeah,
okay, thank
you
all so much for coming, and thank you, Matthew. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Rosy. Much love, everybody. Bye.